Rail Up, the future mobility podcast with innovators and leaders of the ecosystem. Presented by Sebastian Sperker.
In this episode, we dive into autonomous shunting operations and an innovative way to upgrade existing diesel locomotives. My guest is Milan Karunaratne, Vice President of Digital Advanced Technology at Wabtec Corporation. Together, we explore the North Star project Maverick and take a closer look at how a global corporation drives innovations. Hi Milan, and welcome to Rail Up the podcast. It's a pleasure, and of course I start always my podcast with the same question. So Milan, how would you describe yourself? You're rather an innovator or a leader?
Well, Sebastian, thanks for having me, and very nice to be here. I think they're both tightly intertwined, right? And I was thinking about this, and I strive to try and be both. And here's why. If you're an innovator, you're looking to solve a problem, and you're trying to solve a problem for someone, right? At the end of the day, whether it's a community, it's a company, it's a person, and you need those leadership skills to take them along the journey to adopt whatever solution you're putting. And the second piece is, look, we can't do all this by ourselves. We need to find the right team, the people passionate about the same topic to go do this. And you need those leadership skills. And if you're not working on something that's exciting and innovative, you're not going to attract the right people. So they're really tightly intertwined. And I like to think of myself as striving to be both to the best of my ability, of course.
In this episode, we will talk about one of my favorite topics, about autonomous driving in rail. But this time, we will not focus on a fresh founded rail tech company. No, this time we will talk about a company with over 150 years business experience in rail. We will talk about Wabtec, about the innovation in this area. So Milan, give us some insights.
Sure. And at our core at Wabtec, we aim to revolutionize the way the world moves through lasting transportation solutions, right? And that's a world where rail continues to be the safest mode of transportation on moving goods or people. But it's also a world, Sebastian, where we adopt these new technologies to potentially reshape the barriers to further adopt this mode of transportation you and I both love and we work in, right? And we do that by improving the efficiencies in some cases, and in some cases, rethinking operations, right? For leveraging this network or infrastructure that we have more. It's funny, we in the digital and the tech space, we talk about data platforms and platforms that do a lot of things. One of the most complex, data-rich, and strategically vital platforms in the world is a rail network, right? So what we want to do is really help our customers make the best use of that by providing them with the best technology-enabled solutions at the end of the day.
Yeah, and Wabtec has already proven that they have the ability to change the ecosystem of rail, as they introduced the new air brake system back in 1869.
Yes, and that's exciting. It's really tapping into that legacy of kind of innovation right from the roots of the company, from Westinghouse to Edison and Fäveli in these spaces.
Yeah. And how comes now Wabtec is a big corporation? Like, how does fit autonomous driving into this vision?
If I think about autonomy as a whole, whether it's driving or autonomy as operations in these spaces in a yard or something like that, say, it's about leveraging this technology to make rail operations more efficient and safer, right? And that are human assisted, because we believe at the end of the day, that type of operational improvements and efficiency will give our ability to compete against an alternative path, trucking in this case, right? Or other modes of transportation. And it also, this technology enables our customers to maximize their resource and efforts and apply them into areas that really make us more competitive against these other modes of transportation. Because at the end of the day, that's what we need to do to grow our industry, because that's the objective.
Yeah. And basically, if you just type in Wabtec and like autonomous driving, then you will find two keywords that's Maverick and Pathfinder. So can you just tell us the story behind these both products and give us a little bit more insights what we're talking about or what you're innovating?
It's pretty exciting that that's what pops up when you type that in. Look, and before I jump into Maverick and Pathfinder, just for some context on where these products and ideas are coming from, this is part of our advanced technologies applied R&D team at Wabtec, right? And these projects are being developed in the context of de-risking a technical and a market space that then our businesses could adopt to try and scale, right? So think of us like an upstart within a large company, and we're working on a portfolio of initiatives which may pan out, have panned out, and sometimes haven't panned out, right? And frankly, don't work. But that doesn't keep us from, taking the swings. But Maverick and Pathfinder are two of one of our, very exciting initiatives we have going on. And it's an interesting backstory on Maverick. And Maverick is this autonomous, smaller locomotive designed to haul a shorter train. That's autonomous in nature with a teleoperation human in the loop. What the story behind it is interesting. And I was with a colleague. We were just leaving a tech demo, and we got in a car for a 3-hour journey. So we were focused. And in these car rides, Sebastian, I always like to ideate because no distractions, no phone calls, no Teams, nothing. And we as Wabtec, we're an OEM of freight locomotives, right? And we build the diesel engine that goes on the locomotive in a different location from where the locomotive is finally assembled. It's in Pennsylvania, and the assembly is in Texas. That's about 1,500 miles apart, about 2,400 kilometers. And we asked each other the question, hey, how do we ship the engine from Pennsylvania to Texas? We didn't know, so we started calling people that we knew in the car. And they said, truck. And we were like, huh, interesting, right? So look, we were, I'll call it naive engineers trying to solve a problem. So we started just, digging into that. Why? And that's where some of the things started to pop out. Well, shipment volume, shipment sizes, just in time, service quality, cost in drayage and lift and getting to rail, all these things started to pop up. And we started going, well, let's dig into this more. How much more pockets of freight in this area fall into this category? And that's what started to unlock the idea of, well, what if we identified something that's gives a new knob for our customers to use to go after freight? That was one side of it that started the impetus of Maverick. The second side of it was I live in California, in just south of Los Angeles. And California is notorious for these 10-lane freeways, right? And I'm sitting there in bumper to bumper traffic, with a bunch of trucks and vans and cars. And we're 2 hours in this traffic. I look to the right and I see 3 to 4 sets of rail tracks. How often did I see a train go by? None in that time. So that brought the whole network side of it. So those two kind of concepts of the infrastructure and this gap was the impetus to how could something like a Maverick maybe address some of those needs. And of course, as we've talked with our customers, we're learning more about the implications of that, but those were the impetus of that. And that's Maverick, right? And Pathfinder, you mentioned is a real great example of a group of talented and passionate engineers getting together and saying, well, if that's our North Star of what we need to do, how do we start? What's the first phase into this? And think about Pathfinder as a Amazon Fire Stick or a Roku stick you plug into your TV.
Your old TV.
Your old TV to get Netflix. You get a cool remote and then you plug it into your old TV and boom, you have Netflix. Pathfinder is your Amazon Fire Stick for older locomotives, right? And any locomotives that have aging control systems and maybe near end of life where bringing this suite of automation technology is not really viable, Pathfinder aims to solve that. And it allows us to end up building a platform for Maverick while still adding value to our market and our customers today. So it's really a lot of fun and exciting space there.
It's a little wagon which is added to the locomotive and has all like the modern technology in terms of PTC, about our sensoric, about like all the data communication with like inside, and so it upgrades the loco. And something which we already talked about, what was for me quite new, that all the locomotives, like I guess almost most of the locomotives in the US, they already have a kind of ability to be connected to each other. So I think that that's very important in comparison to Europe. So basically, they already can talk to each other, so that you can I don't know, distinguish the powertrain, right? And therefore, the Pathfinder is really an upgrade for the entire train, even if you use more locomotives, because they are connected to a certain degree, right?
Yes, exactly. And thanks for highlighting that too. Yeah, we have a standard connector, right, for called MU that gives the ability to control different assets throughout the consist, and that is a key enabling function. It's your approach to automating the train and not necessarily the locomotive, right? And that configurability to be able to attach it to something is of value to some of these low and medium horsepower.
I was just thinking where to plug, like in an old diesel engine, something, right? Because we don't have anything to plug in, right? So, but in the US, they do have something to plug in, so that it's
They
working
do,
out.
they do, and you know, that's the exciting part about when you talk about innovation in this space. It's not, you know, always maybe like creating something brand new from scratch. It's really understanding the context of operations, and then saying, how do you bring this new technology to an area that can't get it today? That is innovation too, and I think the team has done a really exciting job, and it's a very very exciting initiative there.
Yeah. And I think also another, I think, important topic, like PTCs are like not equivalent, but more or less also kind of ETCS are from in North America. And basically with this Pathfinder, you really increase or like upgrade it to the safety levels. You can use much more tracks or the main lines actually, right? So that you enable really the area of operations for a specific loco without really touching the loco at itself. I think that's something what is really cool, because I guess to change the locomotive or the electronic on the locomotive would cost so much more investments and efforts to go through. So that's an easy attachable upgrade. The Fire Stick.
Yeah, you bet. And we learned that by talking with our customers and understanding what they want, you know, how do they make this viable, right? And the team takes that into account and say, you know what? Don't change anything. Couple it, plug it in, go. Okay. That gets very exciting. And you're absolutely right on some of the safety side. And there's a variety of use cases that we're talking with our customers around how it unlocks safety, but also potential volume growth for them on freight they couldn't otherwise move today.
Yeah. But as you mentioned, that's just the first step. And like the North Star is like Maverick. And you can envision that like really as an autonomous shunting locomotive. So that's what Maverick is, without having like any place for loco drive anymore, right? There is no cockpit, there is nothing. It's like autonomous. And Pathfinder is like on the way to this North Star project. When we're talking about now Maverick, so what are the problems you will solve with that?
With Maverick, it's what we're learning is the different segments have different problems to attack, right? So as you get into a yard, where this could be Maverick ends up playing, it really drives to the core part of efficiency and operations to reduce variability in a yard. So if you have a fleet of Mavericks that are working with other automation technologies like RailGhost and things like that to kind of drive efficiency of making and breaking these trains in these parts, it ends up driving that efficiency, which will drive a reduction in dwell and increase in throughput, which at the end of the day gives a competitive advantage for our customers in moving goods from A to B on rail and making, you know, something like yards, which typically drives a lot of variability and challenges, less of an issue in that space. If you're talking about getting into these local runs, right, where you're going from, if you draw a circle kind of within the yard and then expand the radius outside of the yard into local operations and that they run, this is now getting into also tying back into that efficiency and service quality side, where you could dispatch a Maverick where it doesn't need to wait for let's say a large 100-car train to be built. It could dispatch a smaller set of cut of cars. So you're starting to get into some of that just-in-time type operation. And then eventually down the line, Sebastian, as we integrate it into mainline operations that maybe, can integrate with the long haul trains, which is a complex problem to solve. I don't want to say that nonchalantly and say, oh yeah, it'll happen. It's a complex problem to solve, but those are the type of pieces. And at the end of the day, it's driving that efficiency and safety that allows them to unlock more of that that freight they're not moving today, or improving efficiencies in what they do move today to make it more competitive with trucking.
I would say to have autonomous operation in shunting yards, it's more or less the most complex one you can start with, because in comparison to the main line, you have multiple tracks, so you have multiple moving obstacles behind it, and that's really already a big challenge. But I would just be very interested in how much the whole process of the shunting must be, let's say, digital, yeah? Because you're sending digital information to an autonomous locomotive. That means also that the whole IT system in the back must be already digitalized. So every wagon has to a specific number, specific location, so you need GPS data, whatever. So how much effort is needed in order to really use this kind of technology?
Great question. And you're right. In a yard is more complicated in some aspects to the main line in the operation piece. One of the things that we're identifying is we have to look at the yard holistically.
Okay.
You can't just say, hey, go adopt an autonomous locomotive in your yard. It doesn't work that way. There is a prerequisite of technologies that need to exist to extract the full value a Maverick can bring in a yard. So, and that's the beauty of Wabtec, by the way. As we look at our portfolio of things we do, we work across these spaces, right? So we look at the yard holistically in this case and say, well, what are the major problems to drive an increase in throughput or dwell? Or if we had to bring in that final, or the nugget of Maverick at the end, what needs to be there in these cases, right? So you're absolutely right. There's a prerequisite of technologies that's needed. Now, how do you address those in a, some type of a staged way? You mentioned GPS on every car and things like that. There's different technologies that we can put in a yard that we're putting in for a project called AIM, Asset Inventory Management, that uses, AI and computer vision technology that identifies the rail car as it comes in, tracks it within the network using camera technologies that can end up feeding into a back office system that informs something like a Maverick, right? So it knows. I also want to say that, there's still going to need to be people and humans in the loop here for exceptions operations and operations in these areas, because there are also some things that it doesn't make sense to automate, right? And I think it's okay to say that, right? It doesn't make sense to automate those things because it's all about the return and the impact that we can have on efficiency and safety, right? And if automating something is going to cost, way too much in these cases, don't do it. Do it where it makes sense. So there is a prerequisite of technologies that are operating the yard, and our philosophy is to look at it holistically and also know that there'll be some type of an exceptions operation that's there.
Yeah, and as I mentioned at the beginning, Wabtec is operating in nearly all areas in the rail ecosystem, such as rail freight, public transport, digital services, and even in other industry like mining. And just recently, you acquired an Austrian company for sensors. So in other words, you have already all experience in almost the relevant areas of rail, and I can imagine that also boosts quite a lot the innovation.
Yeah, and honestly, that's the really exciting part as well.
So you have access for everything.
Yeah, I don't know if I say everything, but we have access and domain expertise and experience and people that really can help fill in these gaps. When we think about, automation and these type of things, it's never I have this one asset and it does this, right? It's an ecosystem play. Rail operations is a complex thing. A lot of moving parts, and that type of experience is great. And when we talk about Maverick and Pathfinder and these yard automation initiatives, it plugs directly into our portfolio of products. I think in end of 24, I believe our Trip Optimizer, which is our energy management system, it's our cruise control, adaptive cruise control for our automation driving engine, I think we logged over 1 billion miles in auto end of 24, right? So we have these technologies and experience that we're building on top of. And that's exciting because it gives us an opportunity to really understand how to integrate and scale these things. And as an R&D group that sits, centrally within the company, it's really exciting for us to go and talk to these new companies and say, hey, what do you think? Do you have any other ideas, or how do we maybe use some of your products in solving this thing I mentioned earlier about a prerequisite set of technologies to make it happen, right? And that's really the fun part. Yeah.
And basically, just to inspire our audience, can we just go to have some quick business cases or areas where you can use the Pathfinder, and what would be the typical like benefit like for automation for the Maverick? So let's start with the Pathfinder. So when Pathfinder is perfectly fitting into order to attach a loco.
Really, the market segment we're looking at are these low and medium horsepower older locomotives where they're at the end of life.
What is the end of a life of a North American diesel engine?
It's a great question. I mean, you're getting into like 20, 30, 40-year-old assets, right? And they may have less than 5 or 10 less than 10 years of life left in them, right? And that's typically as you get into these kind of other operations, they're older assets. So it's really those type of assets that don't get the advantage of the fuel savings, for example, with our energy management system and better train handling. So saving fuel, improving track wear, and how trains are operated. That happens on the main lines today, but not in these pockets. That's one. Or we're seeing value props around what you mentioned a bit on the safety overlay systems, such as PTC, that allows them to operate in a larger network of tracks, which really enables them to move more business, more freight that they otherwise couldn't. That if they couldn't operate on that safety overlay track, they lose the business to trucking due to the service quality issues. So from a Pathfinder perspective, it's really coming down to that, as well as technologies like teleoperation, which we've included in all of our products because we believe in a path of human in the loop from the beginning. We've said that, where they can use it to, optimize some of their operating assets as they teleoperate these assets remotely and support it.
There's already a case where this teleops working with the Pathfinder.
Right now, our focus is on the first major use cases are with PTC and our energy management systems, right? But we have demoed, teleoperation of our teleoperation technology already, right? That we've shown, because we actually started with that because we knew no matter what automation you do, you're going to need some type of a human in the loop.
Absolutely. And now comes like, I think, not the magic word, but the challenging word. What about homologation of these operations? Are they, let's say, already like allowed to steer a locomotive or train with teleops?
Right now, I mean, today we have a product called remote control technology that's used in the yards and in certain areas. So there's precedents and rules and regulations around adopting those type of technologies. We see teleoperations as a natural progression of that. And as you kind of increase in those type of things, you will start to new regulatory requirements will need to be met in certain areas. We're also exploring this in different countries as well, where teleoperations add value in a different way. There are certain areas in operations globally where it's unsafe to have people in the cab going through a certain set of track. So a teleoperation solution really is a great way to start to test and validate in these type of areas as you get to scale things out. But you're right, we live in an industry that safety is of paramount. And we have to live up to that, and the regulations and homologations are there to drive that. And we have to understand that and really make sure we do the due diligence in how we step into these technologies, not just jumping into it, right, and thinking about it after.
Yep, I agree. And and what about the business cases for Maverick?
Maverick is in two spaces, right? As we touched on a little bit. As you get into yards, it's around driving that operational efficiency and reducing the variability. Because if we can reduce the dwell and increase the throughput in a yard operation, which is a enclosed type of operating system, that's where Maverick can start to add a lot of value. As long as it's accompanied with the prerequisite technologies to make it work, right? That's the first piece. The second area then gets into the larger plays. Can the operating metrics of a Maverick increase the service quality for our customers, whether it's from a port to a distribution center or some of these, shorter runs where you can maybe bypass a yard and not have to go through and deal with the dwell in these areas, start to unlock some of that new freight of operation. As you think about some of our closed loop mining routes or industrial routes, Maverick really starts to also make a great market segment to add a lot of value in that space.
And one technical point, like, is the whole engine like powered by a diesel generator, or is it a battery only? Zero emission.
Yeah. No, I get this question a lot, and really my answer to that one is right now, that's not the biggest worry to me. I'm focused on the automation side. The beauty of Maverick is, as we're narrowing in on our launch kind of use cases, a diesel engine or a battery, it sort of doesn't matter. We're making the platform agnostic at this stage, because there might be customers that said, now, yes, I don't want to sound the implications of doing one or the other are different. There's more development and testing, and diesel engines, we've been doing that for quite a while, so we know how to do that very well in a smaller diesel engine. But really, the platform's agnostic, and based on the customer and the market, we will decide on how that goes, zero emissions or with a clean diesel.
Let's speak about innovation within the organization. And I think Wabtec is maybe a very good and interesting company, as it works with a team of 25,000 employees, and that's globally. So in huge organization and big corps, I think it's quite a big challenge to push real innovation through the processes, through the areas. So what is Wabtec's approach to innovation?
This is a great / complicated question in large companies. But here's the thing: we're not dissimilar from this notion of innovation in large companies. There's been books written about it, right? So it's really about understanding the situation. But it comes down to a few things as we look at it, and the mantra we live by. You need to know what problem you're solving.
But that's the starting
Period.
point. Yeah.
And I say that, and we both go, yeah, makes sense. I will tell you that is not clear in some of the things that occur, and which drive some challenge. So first things are, be clear around what the problem you're solving, and then the next one is, how big is that problem? These are questions that I ask my team on any new initiative we're taking on. What is the problem? How big is it? How much of that problem do you think we can influence? How scalable is it? And then what's our ability to execute? Those 5 fairly straightforward questions really are the impetus of the creative thinking and the innovative thinking that we put forward. Notice how I did say solution in any of these, right? Of what solution it is. That's the creativity that comes from the team and understanding how to solve it. But this helps filter out some of the different kind of initiatives that will potentially go down a path that doesn't have value, or you're taking a swing at something that isn't too big in these areas, right?
And how innovation is coordinated in various domains at your global scale?
Yes, especially in a company that is as large as us and has grown in the way we've grown through different acquisitions and companies. Honestly, this is a tough one, but this is also the really fun part. You're getting to meet people from different parts of the world, cultures, ways of thinking, products, and and that's exciting, right? Because you start to understand, oh, maybe my way of thinking, it just wasn't the best way. This person kind of brought something in, and this is something organizationally over the years we've tried to, and we're still working to it, because trust me, Sometimes I do get embarrassed when a customer says, "Yeah, Wabtec has this product that does this," and I go, "Oh, uh, let, let me get back to you,"
Yeah.
right? But we've really worked hard at working closely with all of the business units across the world, so that they are aware of some of the things that we're doing and the capabilities they have, and we are aware of the ideas and the products that are throughout the company in order for us to build the best possible solution going forward. I always tell the team, and I joke about it, I was like, "Hey, as we get into this one, let's pull all the best Wabtec hits
Yeah.
into this solution," right? All the pieces that we want. And to be honest, I think at the end of the day, this diversity of location and thought makes our solutions and products better and stronger. And while it's a challenge to make sure we're always synced up, it's a strength at the end of the day.
That sounds good. And yeah, you already mentioned the team. Like which kind of people are working in your team actually, and how to find them?
Oh, this is my
The next
favorite
one
part of the
tough,
job.
yeah.
No, it's tough, but
Yeah,
look, we
yeah.
do things because they're tough, right? But this I will say is, if you ask me what the best part of my job is, it's building the team, it's growing the team, it's identifying these people that come in, and the type of folks we pull in are risk takers. They are, because you have to be comfortable coming into this team, and when we're focused on a portfolio of innovative projects where X% will fail, you're not coming into a group that has, "Hey, you know what? This is what you're doing for the next 3 years, and here's a list of, you know," which is, we need people that will jump in and execute on these very critical programs. So it's really on these risk takers. They're comfortable with change, comfortable with collaborating with different personalities. And we look at our team. If I always say, whenever someone new comes into the group and they get into one discussion, like we just had a Pathfinder kind of discussion around a technical solution or a path, it is the most energetic conversation and debate that's going on. And you'll have people that are coming from the left side, the right side, in the middle. But at the end of the day, the team has enough of an understanding to make the best solution.
As you're already talking so passionate about, what is your personal journey into the rail and the technology?
I actually stumbled into the industry
Okay.
and have not left. Haven't stumbled out. I stumbled in through GE, is when I came out of university, and my background is actually as a mechanical engineer, where I was doing diesel engine development and testing in the start. So I fell in love with the product, the physical product side of things in the space, and really I fell into the industry on that. But what's amazing is, over my career, now I've been in the industry about 17 years, right? And over the course of my career, the problems have been so different that we've been working on, right? And I would ask the same question of you, and how in that space, the problem space is so large, and that has kind of allowed me to take on different roles, keep me really excited around building really exciting things.
Yeah. And I think I can just underline. I think the fascinating thing is it's like such a complex environment that there is not a single solution which really pushes you forward a lot. So you really need to understand the system and really have to figure out various topics and to join the topics really to get it solved. And I think this is like the fascinating world of rail. Now, a provocative question: what was the biggest fail you had in the industry?
Oh man, I think one of the that's a good one. We've had many. We've had many, and in different parts of my career, right? We've had, as an engineer, I've had a personal failure where, certain types of attention to detail on a test, on a test bed that I was running, where, I was putting, speed over kind of diligence on something, and these areas have resulted in some challenges. And then it's a learning experience around being able to put the focus in the right areas. On the innovation front, one of the big failures was in a project that we did we where we focused too heavily on the technology, and we went and burned 6 months and a bunch of time and travel and development, and really didn't bring the context of the customer. That's why you see, at the top, I talk about that and really understanding, and we underestimated the amount of effort it would take them to integrate what we were doing into their operations. We're an industry where you can't we're a brown not a greenfield space, we're a brownfield type situation, right? We can't tell our customers, "Stop operating or change change everything and then use my widget," right? And this was one where we underestimated that. We didn't think through it, and really the project ended up not working or not being adopted. And it was a failure. And could we have caught that failure? Here's the big one. Could I have caught that and understood that this wouldn't have worked 20% into the project? Yes, I could have, but we went the whole 100%. That is something that I learned from, and now in every project we take on, guess what I'm pushing the team and asking the questions on? Who is going to adopt it? How? Have you talked to them? What's the biggest concern? So it's a feedback loop to help improve the process. All the failures are a step in the right direction, if you know what I mean.
Absolutely. Thank you. And what was the magic moment you would like to share, like in the industry, for you?
It was one of the proudest, I'll say, moments. And I know the proudest moments will be when I see Pathfinder and Maverick running out on track. So that's
So far.
but I worked 4 years on in the freight world. We designate in North America these locomotives based on emissions tiers, and I remember when the emissions regulation came out for a Tier 4 engine or Tier 4 locomotive, which was one of the largest reductions in emissions in the engines in our engines. 80% reduction in certain NOx in particular matter. Big step changes, right? So what seemed to be oh my God, how are we going to go do this? And I was fortunate enough to be part of that team and that program for 4 years. And when we met the deadline for releasing that locomotive and product to when the regulations kicked in, and I remember the day very vividly of the first locomotive kind of busting through a banner that went through, and everyone was clapping. I'm getting goosebumps talking about it right now. That was a magic moment for me to say, wow, this is a big group of very talented people that pulled off something pretty amazing, and is a flagship in what it is in the freight side, because I come from the freight side mostly. And that's something that will stick with me for a long time. Just the journey, the people, the effort, the hard work, the collaboration, and to see it come to fruition in a brand new product that is solving a big customer need. That's a magic moment that will stick with me. And the next one hopefully is gonna come here soon on a few things too.
Cool. And basically, my next question would be like, which advice you would give to a young innovator to join the railway sector? But actually, if you just listen to the last 3 minutes, I think that's the answer. What you like to hear.
It's a great one, and I will just add to that on it, Sebastian, is advice to these young innovators is get your hands dirty. Iterate. Don't be afraid to fail. Right? The biggest failures is not taking the risk or taking a shot on an idea or speaking up in a meeting to say, hey, have we thought about doing it this way? That's the biggest failure you can have. So iterate, get your hands dirty, and start building things.
In your opinion or your point of view, what does the rail industry look like in 10 years from now? What will be the biggest changes?
That's a great one. What I hope to see in the next 10 years is that it ties back to that first one on the vision, right? We as an industry continue to keep safety and operating efficiency as safety as our key play, but we have opened ourselves to adopt technology in a way that allows us to take advantage of the latest technologies that are happening. Robotics and AI aren't things that are just a flash in the pan or that's going away. These things are here to stay, right? Data ontologies and integration. These are all things that we're working on in this space. The more we push wanting to adopt or figuring out how to adopt, it's detrimental to us because as we think about it in a competitive landscape, where our competitors of trucking and these other, they're adopting it, they're doing it in these areas. So what I hope to see in those 10 years is the industry's appetite for adopting this technology in a safe way to grow, right? And rail, I just spoke at a university a few months ago about technology in the rail industry. And the first things were, wow, did not realize the amount of technology that's going on behind the scenes, right? And figuring out how to adopt these later technologies in a safe way, that's the vision that I hope the industry goes to. Because if we do, we are getting into some really exciting areas where this, safe, efficient, clean mode of transportation really can start to, unlock some big changes for us.
When we talk about solving problems, we also need to understand the environment in which we operate. And a colleague recently pointed out that rail and road transport should not be directly compared, as there are fundamental differences. I mean, for example, the mass of a fully loaded freight trains result in extremely long braking distances, which means transport cannot operate on site. Instead, systems are required to provide a braking system or information far in advance. And for example, in addition, trains cannot simply change the tracks to avoid obstacles. So these differences must be taken into account when we're developing solutions.
And we see a lot of that, right? Even someone at that talk told me, well, isn't automation easy in that space? You go backwards and forwards, right? And I was like, well, yes, you do. But and then I mentioned some of the things that we talked about on stopping distance. But just when I told him, now imagine you have part of the train going down a hill, flat, coming up a hill, wrapped around a mountain, and it's a mile and a half long. And you say go, right? That's a very complex thing to manage and do, right? And that's when people start to go, oh, I get it. And when we think about things like Maverick around these stopping distances, those are things we think about too, right? From a technology perspective, what does that mean for safety if I can stop now within my stopping distance versus a traditional train? So these all factor in to the equation of what value do I bring? How do I maintain the safety? And how do I integrate it into our operations today? Yeah.
What's the one message you would like to share with our listeners as a takeaway?
It's about finding the right problems and coming up and collaborating on the right solutions. So if you're looking to launch big ideas and take big swings, and this is a good space to be in. We have all of it. We got plenty of problems to solve, right? So that's one thing I'd like to really tell your listeners and say it's and like I mentioned to some of the advice of the young innovators looking to come in, take the swings, get your hands dirty, right? Don't sit and say, well, this is how that problem should be solved. Maybe we should do it. Spend less time talking about it, more time doing something about it, because by doing, you're going to learn, and you're going to learn if that's going to work or not. You'll pivot, you'll iterate, and then, 2 years later, you'll turn around and you'll look down at the staircase and you're like, whoa, we've come pretty far, right? So that's kind of what I'd like to leave you with.
Yeah, that's really great. Closing words for this episode of RAILUP. So Milan, thank you very much having you on the podcast, and maybe I will also do one update session, and then you can give us more insights about Maverick when you are one step further. So thank you very much, and greetings to hopefully sunny Los Angeles from Vienna, Austria.
Awesome, man. Thank you very much for having me. I really appreciate it. It was a lot of fun.
What's the takeaway from this episode?
My key takeaway from this episode is that innovation in the rail ecosystem doesn't come only from startups, but also from global players like Wabtec. Large corporations can drive real innovations when they combine startup-like structures with deep expertise across multiple rail domains. What stood out to me was the North Star project Maverick, an autonomous shunting locomotive, is not a single leap, but the result of many smaller smart innovations along the way. Pathfinder, for example, shows how upgrading existing diesel locomotives with modern digital and safety technology can already create real value today. This episode also made clear that autonomy in rail is about more than technology. It requires the right mindset, the right people, and a strong focus on safety, operations, and customer needs. And that's how innovation in rail gets on track, and that's Rail Up.
This podcast connects innovators and leaders worldwide to shape the future ecosystem of rail. Rail Up by Sebastian Sperker.